Thanks for the Turner.
Hello everyone, SKYPIEA here, and welcome to One Piece episode 967, directed by Masahiro Hosoda and supervised by Kenji Yokoyama. There's definitely reasons to be scared for this episode due to how sacred a lot of the content is to the overall series, much like what's going to directly follow it. And the episode's director, Masahiro Hosoda, hasn't really been having the best track record at Wano, as his episodes tend to be on the merely mediocre end of things more often than not. Sure, we have a solid supervisor like Kenji Yokoyama on board here with his nostalgic corrections that are always a treat, and there looks to be a fair bit of extension as far as the SKYPIEA content goes. But I'm still just over here crossing my fingers and hoping that everything turns out alright. Maybe it'll all be for naught though, cause most of the preview does actually look fine enough and almost like classic One Piece a bit in execution, and I'll really just be glad to visit all these old locales again, especially Water 7. So will episode 967 manage to hit all the right notes directorially to deliver a nostalgic and suitable if not better counterpart to the manga? Time to go find the City of Gold and find out. This episode covers the last 2 pages of chapter 966 and the first 8.5 pages of chapter 967. And if there's one thing I'll give this episode, is that it's packed to the brim with extensive filler, which this section in particular, quite like last episode, needed to be properly engaging. In the manga, as per usual, Oda cuts around and jumps around to several different historic One Piece locales in the original source material without much real cohesion. So the anime staff really took it upon themselves to write in a good amount of anime original content that happens both on ship and off ship at these iconic locales to not only provide that much needed filling in, but also lovely character moments like Oden riding the waiver on SKYPIEA and just very fun little antics between the Rogers crew, effectively making the main content from the manga tons more interesting and downright fun, while also allowing them to hit the nostalgic bone in every One Piece fan's body, while also adding in a lot more humanity by playing around with the characters involved, which is made even better by a nice selection of OST that never has a single track that feels ill-fitting, which also helps what is mostly just par for the course direction by Hosoda as far as everything else goes. There's truly just a beating heart at the center of this episode through the adaptation choices that makes it a fun time as well as being well adapted, which at the same time also distracts from the episode's shortcomings in form of its director's skills. Outside of the music choices, I said that Hosoda's direction felt pretty much par for the course for him. And when I say that, I'm particularly referring to the storyboard and visual choices like compositing that don't really feel like they're at home with an episode that goes one step beyond to usurp the manga. While nothing in the board is outright offensively poor, you do tend to notice that it just feels a bit too bland for visiting these several different series landmarks, which is only made even more plain by the fact that Hosoda, more often than not, doesn't particularly care for crazy compositing and lighting, so the episode ends up looking a bit dry outside of the base filters. Sure, Yokoyama's corrections are just as great as they've always been and are perfect for an episode like this that goes back throughout the series history, but I can't help but feel that this episode comes off as a bit boring to look at despite how much fun I was having with it otherwise. I'm definitely fine with the obvious visual measures taken, so this episode doesn't end up using too many sheets that later more Sakuga-worthy episodes could use, but I still feel a really dry overall feeling permeating throughout practically all of this episode's visuals in spite of that. However, I will give points to the reference of Luffy telling Bellamy's crew that he was going up to the sky. Overall, it's definitely on the better end of Hosoda's spectrum of episodes because it wasn't dealing with limiting content, and there was some care put into some of the gravitas of its most important moments. But at the end of the day, what I'm left with is a pretty enjoyable episode that matches a lot of what I love about Anime Wano, but also one that is held back in a pretty big way with what else it could have achieved because of the director in charge of it. But with next week's episode 900 168, it doesn't look like we'll be getting that same type of feeling again, as it seems like veteran One Piece director Katsumi Takoro, who himself is known for being a bit on and off quality-wise, will be really pulling out all the stops he has directorially to make sure this very important episode looks as good as possible. And when one of the most solid supervisors on the show, Shuichi Ito, will be gracing all with his very polished art, it's looking like one of the most penultimate chapters of this flashback and almost the One Piece story itself will hopefully be done just the right amount of justice when brought into the screen. Anyways guys, that's it for now. I'm Skippy, and I'm very surprised at how flexible the CG Odo Jackson was.